our state's assault weapon ban, and it will increase the age to purchase firearms to 21. It will strengthen our ban on large capacity magazines. And it also, and most importantly, invests in violence prevention programs that are evidence-based. We're not stopping there. We know that although we have some of the strongest gun laws in the country, it's not enough to stop the deaths of women and children at the hands of domestic abusers. Domestic violence and access to guns is a very lethal combination, and that's why we have also a set of proposals designed to reduce domestic gun violence. A domestic abuser with access to a firearm is 5 times more likely to kill their female victims. An average of about 70 women are shot and killed by an intimate partner each month in our country. And in Connecticut, 59% of female murder victims are killed by an intimate partner, and of those, 41% are killed with a gun. We know that we have to do more to prevent women and children and families in our state. So here are our proposals to promote safety of women and children. First, requiring a 10-day waiting period before purchasing a firearm. Right now, someone with the appropriate documentation can walk into a gun store and purchase a firearm. We believe that delaying an instant access and instant purchase will prevent acts of gun violence by allowing for a cooling off period. Also, making family violence crime an automatic disqualifier for obtaining a pistol permit is one of our proposals. And finally, we want to expand Ethan's Law to require the safe storage of weapons in all homes, regardless of who lives there. So these are very common sense reforms that we propose, and we think that the proposals that we have will save lives. And the time to act is now. So I want to thank all of those who joined me here today for their very powerful advocacy and work to make our state safer. And with that, it's my pleasure to hand over our program to Commissioner Ravella for some words about our administration's proposal. Commissioner.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for coming today and actually televising portions of this. Usually I'd come and have quite a few pages written out for everybody, but I think you really need to hear my lifelong profession. And that is preventing violence to the citizens of the state of Connecticut. It was preventing violence to the citizens of the city of Hartford. And the governor has become as passionate that I have over protecting his citizens. When we talk about gun violence, we've been at this for I can't tell you how many years. And now we have a comprehensive package that we've put out that really begins to cover not only illegal guns coming to the streets, but also looks out for the prevention side of what we're doing. It is not just a police problem by any means, ladies and gentlemen. It's about our youth who grow up, who find a gun on the street. And a gun, if I could tell you, is the only piece of tangible property that will resell for more than it was purchased for on the city streets. And that's where we see most of our gun violence. So the other thing I'd like to mention to you is we have partners in this. And those partners, the Mothers Against Violence if we can't prevent a shooting, the Mothers Against Violence will certainly help us try to prevent retaliation, because as we climb the ladder. So these guns are coming to our street, but how do you stop them? The written testimony I've supplied is comprehensive. It really covers the fact that we're slowing the illegal guns from different straw buyers and prevention for our domestic violence partners. When Lieutenant Governor mentions community, I could speak to you most of the day about community and that piece that prevents gun violence. When we talk about domestic violence, boy, is that a common sense one where we can adjust our laws and eliminate those that have convictions for domestic violence from receiving a firearm. Suicides, boy, that's an area that I've heard the hospitals talk about a lot. And that is the area where folks will purchase a gun and use it soon afterwards to commit suicide. Accidental shootings. Boy, you know, another hospital issue where we're seeing more and more, not only children, but individuals come in who haven't figured out how to work a firearm and how did they get their hands on that firearm. So gun violence in general, the illegal flow to the streets is a big part of this package, but it also talks about my Homeland Security Advisor side. You know, and I just came back from Washington last week, and there was extensive conversations about the new Secret Service publication. And I'm holding it up, so I'm hoping you begin to read these things and understand what we read also. And is that different areas have higher, different businesses have higher threat levels. We're doing pretty well with schools. That's because of the education, the hardening of the schools, and the parents that help us through that. But there's some other areas, and it's mentioned in this, this proposed legislation, it's about having a gun in a bar. Nothing good happens between a gun in a bar and alcohol. And that is one of the leaders of mass shootings around the country, and the different ages to go with that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we take a long look at this. We've prepared beginning October and November. We've talked it over with legal staff. We've had our special license and firearms unit participate wholeheartedly in this. We've generated a lot of information that is now turned up in the proposed legislation. So, you know, I'd first like to thank the governor, and I'd like to thank the legislature for their look into this as we move forward. So thank you very much.
Commissioner, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to introduce Deborah Davis, and she is one of the very vocal advocates and members of Moms Against Gun Violence.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you for inviting us to this most important press conference, because between myself, Mrs. Beckman, who is the president, Reverend Brown, who's co-founder as well, we are frontline workers. So this bill, essentially, with the series of parts of this bill, basically protects us at every level. We'd like to think of ourselves as battleground folks. We are, you know, we can't sit in the homes and wait for things to happen. We can't sit and just watch to see things happening. So part of our work, we are proactive. And so we're out on the front lines, we're in homes, we're in the community. And as our chief said, that we are basically making certain that the retaliation level stays down as well. So we have to intervene with the families. Our whole goal is to help prevention, intervention. But the key also, because we've been having a lot of mass shootings, I know you know that's wrapped up into everything that we do. And the fact that our children, young children, are getting hold of weapons and they have with no business handling them and not knowing how. And we've heard of senseless violence where the child was in Walmart in part of the country and took the gun out of his mom's purse and actually shot her. And there's been so many occasions like that. So we have to now educate our families, our parents as well. And then, of course, safe storage. That's always a big thing for our families. And I do not want people to think that we're not out there, someone's not out there working in the communities, the urban communities, if you will. Because we always hear naysayers, but we want to let you know that this powerful bill will help at every level. While we're talking to one parent, Reverend Brown, Mrs. Beckman, is at a site trying to prevent something else from happening. So on the prevention and the intervention side for us, this work is real. And we can't sit back and wait for it to happen. We can't stand behind a camera and just look at it happening. We have to be able to be right involved in it. We have to put ourselves in that space, and that's really key. So our presence here, 20 years working with the city of Hartford, and then other parts of the state, being in almost every area of the state, we want to make certain that people can call us if they need us. Prevention and intervention is so important, and we have to keep moving forward, and that is our job. And I stand here on behalf of Philip, my son. Mrs. Beckman stands here on behalf of Randy, her son. And we're not out here because this is something just to do. Our passion and our compassion takes us a step further, because it's all about preventing another child's loss in terms of being taken, and then another mother and father having to grieve senseless taking of their children's lives. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you so much, Ms. Davis and Ms. Beckham. We appreciate your advocacy. It's my pleasure to introduce Tara Donnelly, another outspoken advocate for gun safety. Tara.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Tara Donnelly, and I will be testifying later today in support of the governor's bill, in particular the measures to require safe storage of firearms, regardless of who resides in a given residence. In Connecticut, it is estimated that an average of 12 firearms are stolen per week. Every day for the past 18 years, I have lived with the consequences caused by just one of these thefts. I'll be testifying today on behalf of my parents, Tim and Kim Donnelly. They were high school sweethearts who were individually so full of life, but even more so together. They were simple and happy people who together ran our family jewelry store, Donnelly Jewelry. In February of 2005, they were closing down the store one evening when a young man came in stating he was looking to buy an engagement ring. But as he approached the counter, he instead pulled out a gun. Before my father could react, he was shot 5 times, including a fatal shot to his heart. My mother turned to call the police, but that evening, witnessing my father's murder became the last thing she saw. After being shot 6 times, she died as paramedics tried in vain to save her life. The young man who robbed the store had a heroin addiction that he fueled through petty crimes such as stealing cars and breaking into homes. Weeks before the robbery, he had broken into a home in Greenwich, opened the door to a nightstand looking for valuables, but instead he found an unsecured gun. After a decade of committing nonviolent crimes, being able to access this unsecured gun was the turning point that enabled evil to act. I recently made a phone call to someone I had never spoken to before. It was a call to the man whose gun was stolen and later used to kill my mom and dad. I wanted to know if he supported this bill. Before we could get to that part of the conversation, he wanted me to know how sorry he was for what happened and that he has lived with the aftermath every day since. When we spoke about this bill, he said that he agrees that when a home is vacant, firearms should be kept under lock and key. Had this been the law in February of 2005, my mom and dad would still be here today. The murder of my parents has had a heartbreaking impact on my life, but perhaps the worst part of my story is that it is not unique. We know that unsecured guns are left vulnerable to theft, and leaving an unsecured gun out when you are not home protects no one. Instead, it ensures that stories like mine, preventable and devastating stories, continue. I am very grateful for this legislation put forth by the governor. Thank you.
Tara, thank you so much. And our next speaker will be our Attorney General, William Tong.
Thank you, Governor. I want to thank Governor Lamont and Lieutenant Governor Commissioner for their tremendous leadership in raising this package of proposals here in the legislature. And I just want to remind the legislature today of its tremendous power and ability to protect Connecticut families and to keep people safe. I'm looking over at my former speaker here, Speaker Simwitz, and I think he would agree that one of the most important things we've ever done in this building and together in public service is to write and pass Lori Jackson's law, the domestic violence gun law, which we did together to keep victims of domestic violence safe and to prevent another tragedy like the one that befell the Jackson family and Lori Jackson and her mom Mary. And it just reminds me that this bill is about guns, yes, about firearms, about laws, it's about the legislature, but it's entirely and principally about Philip and Randy, right? It's about moms, it's about Tara, it's about Tim and Kim Donnelly, it's about families. And I want to thank again the governor for keeping families foremost in this debate and making sure that it is entirely about them and keeping them safe.
Thank you. So we appreciate all of our media partners coming, and we have all of these experts who can answer any questions that anybody has.
Commissioner, can I ask you a couple of things? What's the difference in the military-style rifle spec that you want to do?
I probably have to refer you to the comprehensive testimony I submitted.
Oh, okay, thanks. How about the expansion of Ethan's law?
Ethan laws is a very common sense expansion about locking up guns, and it's also coupled with when a new gun is sold that a lock is sold with that, and it's the same thing with the Ethan law. These things need to be unloaded and locked no matter who is in the house.
One of the arguments that has arisen already in the judiciary this morning was that if you're 18-year-olds and you're old enough to serve overseas in the military, why shouldn't you be allowed to buy a gun when you're under 21 in Connecticut?
Yeah, that goes back to my opinion, so I refer you back to the testimony.
Anybody else? All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.